Hello, I'm Mauricio José Schwartz, and this is From the Outside. Europe. What a disaster. Migration problems, a huge bureaucracy, problems of inequality among countries belonging to the same European Union, and problems with over-regulation in some instances and under-regulation in other instances. Reasons more than enough for many to say we should bail out of this disaster. And yet, Europe is our best bet as a society. Bailing out of Europe will not solve the immigration problem, will not solve the over and under regulation crisis, which happens exactly in that respect in most countries. It will not solve bureaucracy. As we know, by the bureaucracy we sustain in our own countries, each and every one of us. And of course, it will not solve inequality. Europe might solve those problems eventually. I won't even talk about economy, which is, for the richest countries, the best argument against Europe. We are paying for others who are poorer than us. Yes, that's exactly what you do in your own country, where you try to make the rich pay more so you can have services for those who cannot pay for those services. This is called solidarity, and it's one of the bases of modern, civilized, enlightened society. You cannot let those less fortunate fall. And you cannot let those more fortunate, those who are taking the most advantage of the good things that society gives them, you cannot let them just get away without paying their fair share for whatever they have in society. A united Europe is still our best bet, and I won't even talk, I say, about the economy, because there's something that's much more important. There has not been a war between the European states since 1945. Yes, there have been wars, many civil wars, and the European states have been involved in conflicts, but conflicts among those belonging to the United Europe, to the European Union, to what was once the European Economic Community, have disappeared. The parents of most people that will see me here, or their grandparents, were pretty much aware that they had to go to war, and you were going to go to war. You would have to defend your country also. You would have to go and kill or be killed. There is much we owe to those people who defended civilization in World War II. But you don't have to do that anymore. You are not, and you really are not afraid of being invaded, as you were invaded many times in the past, no matter what your country is. You have no fear of having to go to war, and that is thanks to the European Union. Of course, wars are driven basically by nationalism, by religion, and by greed. Nationalism is curbed by understanding that the people beyond our borders are basically the same as we are. Religion has been tamed reasonably in Christian Europe since the Enlightenment. It has not been easy, but we have avoided an excess of power from the churches in political, social, and civil issues. And greed. Unless you have a solution for greed, and you really have a variant of communism that might really actually work, you still have greedy people. And if you have greedy people, what we can teach them is that if war is profitable, there can be a profitable peace, cooperation, commerce, the growth of the economy and markets can be good business. You can dispense with war. And this has happened. The greedy have continued to be greedy. Of course they have. But we have not had a war between European nations since 1945. This hadn't happened ever. We had wars in 1939 to 1945, World War II. We had the First World War in 1914. You can go back all the way to Agincourt and the 100 Years' War. You have the 30 Years' War. You have all kinds of confrontations for territorial, economic, or religious conflicts throughout the history of the continent. We have stopped that. Those who try to go back to before the European Union are usually motivated by greed, by religion, and by nationalism. The worst kind of nationalism. Take a look at the Eurosceptics. Le Pen, Farage, Iglesias, Petri, Wilders, Grillo, Hofer, Zulsen, Soini, Michaloliakos, Aixen, not the kind of people you would bring home for dinner. People who are motivated more by hatred than by a true interest in the wellness of all. People who are nostalgic of those times when we had wars, of those times when religion dominated our lives, of those times when we had the dream that maybe a form of authoritarianism, right-wing or left-wing, would be the solution. Europe has problems and will continue to have problems, many problems. But the solution is not to destroy, disgregate, or bail out the European Union. As any other form of government organization, Europe will have problems. You cannot expect perfection from a multinational quasi-federation which still maintains the integrity of every nation that belongs to it. You cannot ask from it the perfection that you don't have, not in your national government, in your regional, in your municipal government. You don't have whatever you are asking for from Europe. We can solve those problems, but the solution of the problems of Europe can only be achieved if we all work together. First of all, stop electing twats for the European Parliament, believing that Europe is them against us. Europe is us. And the kind of people we send to the European Parliament should be worrying each and every European citizen. It has become a cemetery for dinosaurs and a lair of dragons. Throw them out. Send your best people to the European Parliament with clear mandates about what you want the European Union to become. People who are called Eurosceptics tend to talk about the old ways. You know, these people that always believed that the past was so much better. It wasn't. And we know it. Poverty, hunger in Europe is not that many decades away from today. War is not that many decades away from today. I remember an old man, when I was very, very young, that I had never seen him cry. But he cried when he learned about the death of Winston Churchill because his family had been saved by the British in World War II. Let's not go back to the good old days, the days of colonialism, the days of blind nationalism, the days of hatred, the days where religion dictated every aspect of our lives, the days when we didn't care for anyone but us, and us was an ever smaller group of people because we were unable to understand that the rest of the world is also us and that we belong to only one species. Let's not go back to the good old days. Let's make a better future. A better future for all, not only in Europe, but doing whatever Europe can do for the rest of the world, which paid for a good part of European wealth through colonial times. There is something to be done for the world, and we can do it together as Europeans. If we don't, if we destroy the European Union and go back to our little tribes and our little caves and our little clans and our little petty hatreds, there are people who will be very happy to tell us what to do. And woe upon us if we don't do it, because dictators are always waiting. Thank you for joining me.